Hello guys, how you doing? Solomon here with episode 10 of the prequel series to my podcast and YouTube show, Free Speech with Solomon. Now, it's day 2 of my quarantine. I got tested for coronavirus yesterday, and I've been not allowed to leave my room or bathroom, and not allowed to pet my dog, my cat, or see my family. It really sucks, and I've been cooped up. I miss the outside. I really do. I love going on walks and going outside and stuff. But hey, I got one of my final exams done today, so that's good. But today we're going to dive into something very contentious and very debatable. But hey, what isn't contentious and debatable when watching this channel? So today's video, we're going to talk about affirmative action and whether or not I think it is racist or unfair to Asians and whites. So let's get into it. I put my poll on Instagram, and I asked, do you think affirmative action is unfair to whites and Asians? And surprisingly enough, it was about 50-50. I expected a lot less people to think it was, but it was about 50-50. And, even a lot of people that said they thought it was unfair were Democrats. So, hey, interesting. So let's get into it and let's see what I think about it. So first of all, let's define what affirmative action is. So affirmative action is basically where companies, universities, businesses, sometimes the government, come to, they basically take into account your religion, your race, your sexual orientation, whatnot, so that there can be more diversity in the workplace and in the university. And so historically underrepresented people in certain disciplines can be more represented in professions, in university, and all that kind of stuff. So it sounds like a great idea. It really does. It sounds all-inclusive and liberal and, hey, let's get everyone involved regardless of their race. It sounds like that, but in reality, it's not like that. So my opinion is that affirmative action does unfairly discriminate against Asians and whites. And before you attack me and you say, wow, you're racist, you hate black people, you hate Mexicans, what's wrong with you? Just listen to me. I came up with this viewpoint because I saw data that I believe speaks for itself. So let me just give you some statistics before you rush to condemn me. So as of 2019, all of the universities, all of the med schools in America published their admissions and, their admission statistics. So for the year of 2019, I'm just going to read off to you. I've got the stats right here. I'm going to read off to you certain credentials that prospective students had and their acceptance rates based on their race. So prospective medical students in 2019 that had MCAT scores between 27 and 29 and undergraduate GPAs between 3.4 and 3.59, I will read off to you the acceptance rate to med school for each race. For Asians, an acceptance rate with these credentials, that's a MCAT score of 27 to 29 and a GPA of 3.4 to 3.59. The acceptance rate for Asian Americans was 21%. The acceptance rate for white Americans, 29%. The acceptance rate for Hispanic Americans, 60%. And the acceptance rate for African Americans that had the same credentials as the Asians, whites, and Hispanics with the MCAT score of 27 to 29 and a GPA of 3.9 to 3.59, 81%. That's right. African Americans with the same GPA and the same test scores get into med school at 4 times the rate of Asian Americans. They're 4 times more likely to get into med school with the same grades and the same MCAT score as Asian Americans. Hispanic Americans are 3 times as likely to get in with the same scores and the same GPA and the same everything as Asian Americans. That to me is a problem. This is where affirmative action has gone too far. We would love to get more people that have been historically underrepresented, just such as African Americans and Latin Americans, in the workplace and, in certain jobs, in certain disciplines, in certain schools. But there's a point where it's just like this. This is distasteful to me. And let me say this. It's not fair to Asian Americans or white Americans that they are 4 times less likely to get into med school than Black Americans with the same scores. That's just not right. That's systemized racism. And this is one of the few examples where racism favors African Americans and Hispanic Americans. But this is systemized racism, and I don't think it's right. And I think that it is discriminatory to Asians and whites. Now, in a perfect world, you would not take race into consideration when admitting students into med school or college or giving people jobs or whatnot. But unfortunately, that happens in America. So what I think would be truly equality is if we didn't look at race and every race had the same acceptance rate to med school, to university, whatnot. So it doesn't make sense to me how people can support that progressive ideal when it's clearly not progressive, and it's clearly, it started off as progressive with good intentions, but it clearly is ineffective and it is racist towards Asians. It really is. Why are you going to punish Asians and reward Blacks who have the same test scores? It's not right to me. It's an injustice. It's an injustice. And there are several injustices that go against African Americans and Latin Americans. We hear about it all the time. And I'm not going to dispute those. There are so many. But this is an injustice that works in favor for them and goes against Asians and whites, which is just a fact. And it's sad because it promotes more racism and more stereotypes because it itself is racism. So it promotes stereotypes of, oh, Black doctors aren't as skilled because, they probably got in because of affirmative action. Or the same thing with Latin American doctors. And that's not right. That's wrong. That's a stereotype that we shouldn't even have because it's just wrong and it's racist to Blacks and Latins. But the point is that stereotype would not exist if affirmative action did not just benefit them so much in unfair ways. For instance, if we didn't take race into if we didn't take race into account when admitting college students, then it wouldn't be a problem. But it is because we do, and we unfavor Asians and whites. It's not fair. And I have personal stories about it. I have friends that are Asian that have had better GPAs, better test scores, and been more involved than other people that were African American that didn't get into as good universities as the African Americans or didn't get as many scholarships as African Americans. Why? Because they were Asian. Because their Asian culture values education. And that's not even racist. That's just factual. My mother is Asian. She values education a lot. Education is one of the major things in Asian culture. She told me, you can either be a doctor or you can be a lawyer. What do you want to be? She got mad at me when I said I wanted to be an actor. She really got mad at me. But hey, I'm going to school for geology, and she's not going to let me not get my PhD, if that makes sense. She said, oh, which master's program are you going to? Which PhD program are you going to? I don't even know what I want to do yet. But this is just Asian cultural things in Asian culture. And it's not fair for universities to punish that when there are so many prospective Asian doctors out there that sadly won't get in, even if they have the same credentials as African American or Hispanic doctors, solely because they're Asian and because their ancestors venerated education. It's not fair. It's an injustice to me. It really is, and I think it needs to be changed. With that being said, there's even stories of people that have lied about being Black to get into med school. For example, this one Indian American said that he was Black, he had a 3.1 GPA, and he got waitlisted to the number 3 and number 4 med school programs at that time, University of Pennsylvania and Washington University, and he got into St. Louis School of Medicine with a 3.1 GPA because he lied and said he was Black. That's an injustice. That's not right. That's really not right. So what I think we need to do is I think that we need to do away with affirmative action, or at least reform it. Why? Because the fact of the matter is it's unfair against Asians and whites. The statistics to me just show it, in my humble opinion. That's just my point of view. So, let me know what you think. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, whatever. This is just my opinion. My aim is not to offend anyone, but I personally believe that affirmative action unfairly discriminates against whites and Asians. It's just my belief. So follow me on Instagram at soloju_. Subscribe to the channel, and I hope you guys have a good one and stay healthy and stay safe. Peace.